I feel like you touched on it with some of the reconciliation that we do with the three-legged stool, as Matt refers to it as. But that's really something I feel like that is unique and trailblazing in the industry, because we struggled to find other organizations that did that.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it now for 15 years.
Welcome to Revenue Cycle Above the Bottom Line, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of revenue cycle management. I'm your host, Tim Reiner, and in each episode, we sit down with industry leaders, innovators, and experts to explore challenges and strategies shaping the future of healthcare revenue cycle. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out in the field, this podcast is your space for thought-provoking conversations, actionable career learnings, and discussions about the latest trends you need to know about. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get started. On today's episode, I'm joined by Matt Brodis and Marla Trautman to explore the vital roles of cash reconciliation and cash posting. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
I wanted to jump right into the career path of healthcare. How did you each kind of first get into healthcare?
In college, I knew I wanted to be in healthcare because I knew it was a sustainable market, right? I knew that it was going to exist and evolve. So I started out in nursing. Decided that wasn't for me after about a year of nursing prerequisites, and found myself in the long-term healthcare program. So I wanted to be a nursing administrator. I graduated with a degree in long-term care, and that's what I did. But I realized that long-term care wasn't for me. Long story short, at that time, AdventHealth was kind of looking at moving to a different patient accounting system, and someone thought I'd be a good fit for that. Then now, almost 22 years later, here I am, carry on some of the same skills I started with 22 years ago.
My background is a little different. I had no interest in healthcare.
Okay.
I went to school for business and thought that I would one day own my own business, and got my accounting degree. And while I was finishing up my last class on my degree, I actually met someone who worked for AdventHealth.
Okay.
And she told me about a position and recommended that I apply for that position.
What got you into specifically like cash reconciliation, the cash posting area?
So I started in the department that I'm still in. So I started 19 years ago as an accountant on our team, and just continued to grow within the realm.
Back then, what did that consist of?
Oh my goodness. So back then our team was probably 8 or 9 people, and all we did was produce reconciliations. So we had a list of numbers with very little detail that we would just pass out to the marketplace and say, these are your numbers.
These are missing.
You posted them, figure out what to do with it. And so from there we evolved, and we started doing AR clearing reconciliations right as I started. And they had cash sheets and said, go figure out how to do a AR clearing rec. Looking
back at kind of some of the diverse career experiences, did you have a mentor like that guided you along the way?
I think my first leader, who was the director of PFS at AdventHealth at that time, inspired me a lot, because what he did is he brought what I think that I do today. He brought humanity to expectation of excellence. So he kind of said that you can be candid, you can be honest, you can have fun, and you can still set some expectation work.
Now, was there like a particular lesson or story that you remember from that particular mentor?
Well, I remember, maybe not a story, but what I do clearly remember is, and not in a bad way, I've used this illustration before, I say he could flip a switch, but you could go from having a good time to saying, okay guys, but I'm serious. And the room would change, and know that now we were laughing, we were joking, but now we had to get down to business. And you were enjoying your work in that. Before I started at AdventHealth, I worked for a local CPA.
And so he really helped mold and shape me during the end of my college years, and really helped me understand the importance of accuracy and what you present. And so that was really helpful for me. And then I came to AdventHealth really having no real professional experience. And so at that point, Larry Hancock was my leader, and he was my leader for about 12 years.
Yeah.
And so he really helped me understand what the Advent culture is.
Yeah.
And how to shape that and mold me into a leader for AdventHealth.
Tell me a little bit about the differences between reconciliation and just the core cash posting, and kind of like how we got to this place where this is like kind of a function that's together, because I'm not sure it's always together in all health systems.
as Marla said, there's been an evolution right in this, and there's probably this industry trend, as you pointed out, Tim, that you kind of have the finance side of things, and then you have the revenue cycle side of things, and even today they just don't talk. And I think that's something that Marla recognized, and I had recognized sort of in our silos at that point, and just started to gain an appreciation for each other and the fact that you're understanding my struggle and I'm understanding your struggle. And I think that kind of brainstorming, together gave this mutual appreciation. And suddenly we realized there was a better way to do this by taking some of the transactional functions, doing some top-end reconciliation, and doing that. And that's where some of our recent, over the last 5 years, some centralization came from. So what we've done is, instead of doing a back-end reconciliation that was that initial team of 8 or 9 people, we've now taken some top-end reconciliation and tried to fix the problem before it ever started, before it ever falls out. And then, as long as you're transacting accurately, you should have less fallout on the back end, less ambiguity. So that's sort of where I think we've blended things far differently than I've seen other organizations do.
So Marla, what is the kind of key to the success of marrying the technology that we have to reconcile and then release that dollars into the accounting system, and like the people that are there kind of interacting with that technology?
We have a dedicated team that's responsible for managing the tool that we use for matching deposits to remits and splitting those. So we have a great relationship with our vendor, and we partner with them frequently to ensure that we are making the most of the tool and that we're getting the most automation that we really can.
Before we continue, we wanted to thank you for tuning in. If you have questions or thoughts or just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at revcyclepodcast@adventhealth.com. That is REVCYCLE podcast@adventhealth.com. If you enjoyed this episode so far, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow so you never miss a new episode release. Now, let's get back to the rest of the episode. Are there any educational initiatives that you're undertaking with your teams to help them grow?
And we have fostered a culture on our team that allows team members to grow. And so we're constantly having team members grow from one position on one team to another. And since we are such a mix of finance and rev cycle, we have team members that have gone from rev cycle positions over to accounting positions and sometimes back.
And vice versa.
So they're going around, and the HFMA certificates that Matt was talking about, we have finance leaders going for rev cycle certificates and rev cycle leaders going for finance certificates. So it's really fun to see in this space that we have that I feel like is pretty unique, of a nice cross between rev cycle and finance.
What would you say is kind of best practice for doing this kind of reconciliation and cash posting properly? If there's 3 things that you've got to do as an organization, you got a big rev cycle to run, how do you do this really well?
I'd start by saying you have to reconcile.
Okay.
So we frequently find organizations are not reconciling. There may be a component of reconciliation that they're doing. So maybe their rev cycle team is reconciling postings to deposits or remits to deposits, but it's not always common for the full reconciliation process to be done, where we are taking the patient accounting system, making sure that it ties to the deposits and the GL.
Yeah.
Really this 3-way reconciliation, which is what everybody's calling it now.
But that's aided by that remit splitter you're talking about, because we don't have it as bad anymore, but there was a time when we had 3 different home care systems, 2 or 3 different physician AR systems, 3 different patient accounting systems for the hospital. And so you had to, if you got a given remit, it was ending up in 3 or 4 or 5 different AR systems. And so you got to make sure you got to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and that we've got all the dollars accounted for. So that's a component of what you're talking about, that reconciliation. What about just getting the enrollment part? I think what I would have said is that reconciliation remit splitting, at the tax ID level part, and then there's an enrollment component, right? So tell me about that enrollment component.
So going to your first question and sliding right into the enrollment, I think that if you're a large organization, you need to be centralized, and you need to have that buy-in from revenue cycle leadership, from your financial leadership at the regions. you cannot be the size of an AdventHealth or even a quarter of the size of AdventHealth with a quarter of the footprint and maintain continuity in your processes. You just can't do it. So I think centralizing it is essential from out of the gate. And part of that was centralizing enrollment, right? So when we talk about enrollment, it's the electronic payment and the payment detail, right? The EOB, the 835, if we're to use the industry term. So I think that that's really, really important, and that is through us being able to control that enrollment. And then to your point, to use some technology to pause, to make sure we actually are funded to the detail we have, and then to take that detail and split it to the appropriate patient accounting system and avoid that back and forth and those unreconciled items.
Those are the key ones, right? Like it's that like tool that you're using to remit split, and then it also does some work to like marry up PLB's segments, like PLB meaning provider level, what is it? Provider level balancing.
Yeah.
That's like below the line. Like you get a
Exactly.
remit with most of the detail, and then there's like these balancing entries kind of. Any other tools that are like kind of important to that process?
Trendtech product, so that back-end reconciliation tool has been, and I will give Marla and team a ton of credit on this, is we have really taken that tool and customized it to a point that it really is doing what other people aren't doing with that same tool. And I think that being able to take a tool that can do that kind of three-legged stool that takes your financial transaction, your bank transaction, your GL transaction, and then that third leg, that patient accounting, the actual transactional data, and to bring all three of those together is something not a lot of people do. And I think it's really critical to ensuring you have a clean AR picture. If not, you have trickle-down cascading effects that end up impacting your consumers, and you're billing, you're refunding when you shouldn't be. So there's just a lot that goes into that affects our consumer base.
What is there in terms of opportunity as far as automation and like AI even? Like there's it seems like a very automated process if like 99% of those stuff is getting posted by like 835 kind of level automation remittances, if you will. But then you said there is a lot of like human administration still involved in that, like last mile, that last 1% or so. So like how do you see like in the future, next 5 years, that AI and automation like developing?
There is still a disconnect between the finance side from the payer standpoint, from the provider standpoint. There's still the finance side, and then there's the EDI side. And those are just not married. There's now with real generative AI, we've always said natural language processing and IOCR and machine learning, but to have real generative AI now, I think we can use those large language models to evaluate a lot of data and to provide in the reconciliation, to provide more fuzzy logic to say, here's a potential match. So where if someone's clawing through and maybe doing this, I think we're going to be able to kind of present what could be, maybe it's one of these 5, and chances are, probability scores for that, which I think will just kind of spoon feed that. There'll still be a person making that decision, but it gets us maybe closer.
What role, Marla, do you think the interdepartmental collaboration plays in a successful like cash reconciliation department?
Cash reconciliation is a back-end process. So essentially, we are collecting every error, every mistake that happens in the upstream process. So we are most successful when we're partnering with those teams to correct the mistakes up front. So we catch them on the back end and can say, hey, you're using this wrong. You are posting with this AR code when you should use a different one. And so we're frequently working back with those teams, whether it be time of service or various PFS teams. Together, we are making a process where we are fixing those mistakes so that we don't continue to see the same things over and over again.
And that collaboration is mostly to carrying back some of the challenges in the reconciliation, as well as, like, I know that they sometimes are looking for remittances they've been told are like in the mail. Like it's the typical, like the payer says the check's in the mail. So is that kind of the collaboration we're talking about?
I think there's a lot of, like Marla said, that we're catching errors. They're outstanding. That something failed along the way, and kind of have with the approach of root cause analysis, saying let's go figure out what happened, and now let's go back and let's go put some process upstream in place. And a lot of those could be everything from billing practices to, just making sure the right NPI is associated to the right tax ID, making sure the correct pay to address is in form locator 2, or form locator 33, and of your 1500. So a lot of that's really just making sure there's integrity in what we're billing.
Something I'm really proud of that you just touched on was I think we've gotten to fewer addresses and lockboxes. Like, fill me in on the truth here. Am I wrong about this? But we used to have, I don't know, like a tremendous amount of self-pay lockboxes, right?
We have 2 consolidated self-pay accounts. One's our legacy account, everything non-Epic, and then we have Epic because of our SBO model, guarantor billing. We have one Epic lockbox. And then we have one insurance lockbox account and depository account per tax ID.
How does the collaboration with the bank often kind of occur? Like, are you talking to them a lot about how you can get the accounts consolidated down and that sort of thing?
We have a great relationship with the treasury team over here, and they have have a lot of confidence in us and us in them. And we've been with the same financial institution for long enough and have enough relationships there that we kind of know what each other are doing, and we kind of know the intention. Again, with the centralized process, it allows us to say nothing's cookie cutter, but it can be a lot more carbon copy than it once was. Yeah. So in order to open bank accounts that used to take months, we can get those lockbox addresses reserved. We can share commonality in services. And then there's a lot of technology partnership that we have with the banks, using either integrated or third parties to generate, manufacture 835s from EOBs, paper EOBs, our correspondence management. So just a lot of technology baked into the financial relationship with those lockbox partners.
One of the things that we've been on a journey internally is to move from a world-class revenue cycle to a preeminent revenue cycle. We've talked today about some things that already I think are in that neighborhood, is doing that unique reconciliation that not all organizations do, as well as kind of that high reliability, like we're getting it right a super high percentage of the time. Anything else that you would share as kind of that journey to preeminence?
Yeah, I mean, I think world-class is good company, but preeminence is trailblazing.
Yeah.
And I think in order to trailblaze that you have to be creating, and when you're creating and trailblazing, you're assuming some level of risk.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have just a well-considered process that you are willing to say it's scalable, as Marla indicated, it's risk-averse, but we have a tolerance to be able to continue to do things that do push the envelope.
Yeah.
And when you are as large as AdventHealth, or a lot of these organizations are, to be preeminent means you have to have a group of thoughtful leaders, and you need to have the buy-in and the acceptance that things may not, you're not following a path, you're charting a path, and that preeminence is risk. It's not risk averse, but it is what brings you. It's what opens doors that weren't previously opened, and that's where I think we need to be with our operational flows.
Is there anything you would add to that from an accountant's perspective? We have the operations kind of like we can fail fast and innovate. What is the accountant's version of that?
No, I feel like you touched on it with some of the reconciliation that we do with the three-legged stool, as Matt refers to it as. But that's really something I feel like that is unique and trailblazing in the industry, because we struggled to find other organizations that did that.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it now for 15 years, actually, for the back-end reconciliation component.
So before we wrap up, our previous guest left you guys a question. And so the question is, and you can take this first, Matt, if money was no object and you could choose any career that you could be doing besides what you're doing now, what would that be?
I'm an outdoors guy, so it would probably be a park ranger, work for the National Park Service, maybe fish and wildlife.
A particular national park, like Acadia, or like what? Like
Acadia up in Maine. That's a good call out, Tim. Yellowstone,
Okay.
maybe.
Part of me would say I'd start my own business of some kind of not-for-profit, but I actually believe I would be better suited just being a volunteer.
Okay.
This way I can work sometimes and vacation other times. And
any particular not-profit that you volunteered for that kind of fits what you enjoy?
And I've always wanted to open a daycare in the evening.
Okay.
So an overnight daycare for families that have to work night shifts.
Okay.
And so that would be something that I would be excited to do.
Matt and Marla, thanks so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been really insightful. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel.